Lord Tariq Ahmed has to leave, so I would like to request him to make his contribution.
Thank you very much. First of all, very warm assalamu alaikum to you all. It's a pleasure to be here with you. You know, I'm a bit like the new boy on the blocks because I'm one of the recently ennobled peers, and I join my namesake, Lord Nazir Ahmed, in the House of Lords, on a different political colour. I'm on the blue side, he's on the red side, but I think both of us speak with one voice when it comes, neither will I owe to you, but I think the important thing to bear in mind, as someone who's looking at this, as people and with relatives, with friends on all sides of the political divide which is India and Pakistan, and also with people on all sides of the political divide of what is currently the state of Kashmir. And I think the point has been made, and it's an important point, that wherever we see any form of extremism, any kind of radicalism, any kind, be it religious or otherwise, that has to be eradicated. And I hear the words and I pick up on the words of conciliation, and I think here we are 60 odd years on from a dispute which has really economically affected both countries, and it's also economically affected what is one of the most beautiful places in the world, which is the state of Kashmir. And I think it is extremely important that when you see the tragedy that lies within the people of Kashmir, the lost opportunities in terms of economic development, the lost opportunities in terms of youth development, the lost opportunities in terms of education, that there's a concerted effort made by both India and Pakistan, and I welcome the steps being taken in that regard, but also by countries who regard themselves as friends, and Britain is certainly part and parcel of one of those friends. We have close historical links with the region and with both countries, and I think it is therefore appropriate that we address the issues which are impacting that particular region, and Kashmir is paramount amongst that. I think bilateral talks are part of the solution, and I also stand by the fact that when we pass resolutions at a UN level, whoever they are passed for, whoever they are passed against, that it is the international community that has to ensure adherence to these resolutions. And I think the basis of justice and humanity in resolving these disputes must be paramount. So I'm encouraged by the fact that the Indian government and the Pakistani government are making strides towards reconciliation on many fronts. I think there is a great scope in economic ties between the two countries, but the resolution of the Kashmir dispute is key to ensuring the long-term future of not only the Kashmiri people, but the long-term welfare and future of both countries, both economically and most importantly for the people of the two countries and for the state of Kashmir itself. So certainly, whilst I am new to public life at a national level here in Britain, I hope that I can also play my part in ensuring that we do get all the right parties around the table so we can develop a future for Kashmir, a future for India and Pakistan, which is bright for all concerned. Thank you very much.
Can I request now Member Party from Nottingham, Mr. Vernon Joker, who've been supporting us from last few years. We worked very closely during the election time, and thank you very much for joining us. So,
I will be brief, and because not least of which because I have to go. Can I just say a couple of things? First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting, and it's very good to be here with my colleague Julie Henning, as well as some of the noble lords and others. I think there's one thing that's really quite important for us all. I'm not sure, if I'm really honest, that Kashmir is as high up the political agenda in terms of discussion in this country as it should be. And I think for us to move forward in the way that we all want, in a democratic, inclusive way, then these things have to be debated and discussed. And people will disagree, and sometimes people will have quite significant disagreements, but they have to be discussed, and I'm sure Julie would agree that I think it's about time there was another big parliamentary debate about Kashmir. And sometimes it's talking and people say, oh, another talking shop, and here we go again. But without it being raised in Parliament and discussed in Parliament, both in the Commons and in the Lords, I've put down some written questions. It just struck me the other day that I hadn't heard much about Kashmir. So if you look on the order book, I've just recently put some very simple questions which ask the Foreign Secretary what his assessment is of the latest situation in Kashmir. Then what discussions the British government have had with the Indian government about Kashmir, and what discussions the British government have had with the Pakistani government about Kashmir. Now I'm not sure I'll get the fullest answer that you would ever expect, but you know and I know that just simply by asking those questions will cause somebody to say, when did we last have a discussion with the Pakistani government or the Indian government about? And somebody will go, oh, have we had a discussion? Do you see what I mean? And I think it's really, really important. So that's the first thing, and I think between us all we should use this meeting to encourage ourselves, and if I could encourage you to encourage your own MPs and others in Parliament to ask questions and to maybe push for a debate. I think that is really important. I have also put down today, because it's taken for Foreign Office questions for next Tuesday, I've also put down a question asking for a statement on a question on the floor of the House if it's chosen, and there's a process it has to go through, and it's basically a bit of luck whether it gets chosen or not. But if that's chosen, then there should be a question asking the Foreign Secretary to say on the floor of the House what his latest assessment is of the situation in Kashmir. So I think those things are very good, just so that we have something practical that comes out. I think that's very important. Can I also say, just as a second point to finish, I've always been struck in my own constituency in meeting with the Kashmiri community, as well in broader Nottingham and elsewhere, how determined people are to move forward in the spirit of conciliation and reconciliation. And I've always been remarkably impressed by that, given all of the things that have happened, how solid people are in terms of marginalising the extremists and those who would follow routes that we wouldn't. And I thought it was a very, and I apologise, I've forgotten your name, I do apologise, but I just thought the point that was made about looking to see how we can more effectively use links between, I don't know whether you agree, Lord Ahmed, but between ourselves and Indian civil society, and those in India who are looking for a new approach, a fresh approach, as well as continuing to condemn those who we would all condemn on both sides, to look to see whether there are new alliances, new bridges, new ways of thinking that we can develop in order to try to move this whole situation forward. And like any debate or discussion or any conflict, there will be people, and you can think of conflicts around the world, on all sides, who will desperately be trying to find a way of sitting down and discussing to see if there is a way forward. And I saw some comments in newspapers about some of the people in Indian civil society. I didn't see the Indian parliamentarian who said that, but wouldn't that be really significant if in the Indian Parliament one or two parliamentarians started to say we cannot continue with the status quo in Kashmir. It's been going on for too long. The people of Kashmir have a right to self-determination, have a right to determine their own future. That's what the United Nations said decades ago. And what all of us need to do, I think, is try and find new ways and bring fresh thinking, whatever that is, to how we might try and resolve this situation. I don't know how many years I've got left in Parliament, hopefully a few yet, but it seems to me, that's a very good thing. But they said, and I said this at a meeting in Nottingham, I don't know whether you were there, I don't really want to be at a meeting here in 10 years' time where we just sit and saying exactly the same thing. And even if in 10 years' time we haven't made much progress, but new things have been tried to make progress, then I'll feel more satisfied than if we just carry on. So I just think, let's bring some fresh thinking, some fresh thoughts to it, and see where we get to with that. Maybe linking with Indian civil society and others in Pakistan and India, as well as Kashmir itself, obviously. But also, I think on us parliamentarians, we need again to look to see how we raise the profile and issue of Kashmir within Parliament, here in Parliament, so that we get those debates and discussions taking place, without which we will make no progress at all. But thank you very much for the opportunity of saying a few words and for being here with you this afternoon.
very much, Mr. Conker. You've given us a lot of thoughts, not to us only, but
To ourselves.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
We wanted to request all these things which are written there. Everyday motion. I am thankful to Julie Ealing and all of you who have supported and signed last time. We had more than 60 MPs signed everyday motion for 13th July. And now, what we are looking, one everyday motion before Friday, which whoever, I know that you have got a problem, but Craig hasn't.
No.
he can do that.
The problem is, I'm not, as a shadow minister, I can't sign EDM.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's not
right.
it's not.
But I would like to request Lar Ahmed, as the chairman of All Parties Kashmir group, to take initiative on that and ask the group to do an everyday motion on this International Human Rights Day. And at the same time, at German debate.